Many are the afflictions of the righteous, but the Lord, He will. He will. Many are the afflictions of the righteous, but the Lord,
Hello, everyone, and welcome to tonight's International Women's Council Health Symposium. Tonight, we're featuring Dr. Susan Wolford White. Dr. Wolford White is a general pediatrician and served as the medical director for the University of Michigan Comprehensive Weight Management Center for many years. Her research, funded by the National Institute of Health, has focused on the use of new technologies to enhance provider-patient communication about healthy lifestyle habits, particularly with diverse populations. Tonight, she will be addressing the topic of obesity in childhood. Let's say a word of prayer before we go in. Thank you, Heavenly Father, for this time of sharing to help get everyone healthy, to get her healthier is our goal in this series. And we pray everyone is blessed, including our speaker tonight, and will apply whatever is needed with the counsel of their own providers in order to get healthier. And now, Dr. Susan Wolford White.
Hello and good evening. Thank you so much, Dr. Fitzgerald, for that kind introduction and for that prayer. I definitely would like to thank the Lord for this opportunity to be with you this evening, and again to thank Dr. Fitzgerald for the invitation, and Pastor McCoy for all of the help with the technology, and indeed to thank all the leaders and the members who make this program possible. So, as was mentioned, I'm going to speak this evening about childhood obesity. So I'm going to share my slides with you now. Hopefully you will be able to see those. As Dr. Fitzgerald so kindly said, I'm a general pediatrician at the University of Michigan, where I wear a number of different hats. And so one of the hats I wear is as one of the co-leaders of a program for equity for adolescent and child health. And I'm very, in this role, very focused on being sure that all children get optimal health care. I also am the co-leader of our CS Mott Children's Hospital, National Poll on Children's Health, where we delve into a lot of different issues about child health. And our goal is to help parents to learn as much as they can about how to help their children to be healthy. But the hat that I think I like the most is the one that was mentioned in my role in the weight management realm, where I've run a number of programs over the years. And here I am with the Michigan Pediatric Outpatient Weight Evaluation and Reduction Program, say that 3 times fast, our Empower program. I'm not sure if you can see me in the back there exercising with our teenage patients when we had that program. So I think about obesity a lot, and it certainly is an epidemic in our society, and it's gotten a lot of media attention. My sister and I got to do a study together where we looked at some of the factors that play a role in people developing excess weight. One of them we thought was hairstyle choice among African-American adolescents. My hairdresser said to us, who needs to study that? Everybody knows no one's going to sweat their hair out. But we were able to study it and look at some of the factors and ways in which we can help adolescents to navigate the barriers to being physically active. And then, of course, COVID came along, and we were reminded of the fact that excess weight even affects our immunity, and that those with excess weight were more likely to suffer from a worse sort of bout with COVID if they had it, even in childhood. And so when we think about obesity, I think one of the most important things to think about in the beginning is how common it is. Over 14 million children and adolescents suffer from obesity in the US. And it's not really as prevalent amongst all children. So if we look at this, the prevalence by genders, we look at boys and girls, and then we look at it by race. And so I'm going to bring each race in individually. So we start off with non-Hispanic white children. We'll see the prevalence there. And then if we bring in non-Hispanic Black children, we can see that amongst non-Hispanic Black girls, over 30% of teenage girls, Black girls, have obesity. And that's really quite a lot, almost 1 in 3. And then if we think about non-Hispanic Asian children, we see their prevalence there. And then when we look at Hispanic children, we see that both for boys and girls, the prevalence of obesity is really quite high. So why should we be concerned about it? Well, I want to make it clear that we should all love just how God has made us. God made no mistakes, and so we are not concerned about obesity because of anything to do with how one looks. Now, of course, when we think about teenagers and excess weight, many of them, when they think about addressing excess weight, they think about doing it because they want to focus on how they look on the outside. So why should we be concerned about weight? Is it because of how we look on the outside? Answer A. Or B, because of the way in which excess weight might affect our cells and how they work on the inside. Well, I hope you're all answering that. Definitely the answer here is B. We're really focused on what it's doing to our cells. And why focus on children? Well, we know that children are a gift from the Lord and they are a reward from Him. We also know that if we train up a child in the way he or she should go, when he is old, he will not depart from it. Proverbs 22:6. So whatever we are training them to like and take in while they're children, as they get older, it's really hard for them to depart from that. So clearly, we need to think about this in children because it's affecting a huge number of children and it's affecting their health. Because not only is it common, but it's also very complex and associated with a number of complex comorbidities. So all of these illnesses listed on these slides are things that children can develop because if they have excess weight, and they develop these things even in childhood. So it doesn't have to wait till they're older. They will see it even while they're young. And just to call out a couple of them, liver disease is one that one can see in children, high lipids we see in children, insulin resistance, and even some develop diabetes type 2. So as we think about diabetes, more kids will have pre-diabetes than diabetes even. And often we go and get our hemoglobin A1C checked. And the reason why we can tell from our hemoglobin A1C whether we're pre-diabetic or not is that we have these heme strands in our red blood cells, and the glucose here in little dots attached to that hemoglobin. And if you have more sugar, more glucose, more sugar in your blood, then more of those glucose molecules attach to the hemoglobin. And so when you get the blood test, we can tell whether you've had way too much sugar in your blood cells or in your blood. And it tells us that number, and it gives us a sense of how well blood sugar has been controlled over the last 3 months, because that's how long red blood cells live. They usually turn over every 3 months. So if it's less than 5.7, then you're in the normal range. But if you are between 5.7 and 6.4, then we would say that you have prediabetes. Many of us will have heard that we have prediabetes. It is not the worst thing in the world because it can, in most cases, be reversed. So yes, it's sort of an alarm clock going off to wake us up, to make us say, let's do something. But for most people, if they find that they have prediabetes, they are able to reverse it. But of course, if we don't make any changes and just continue to expose our blood to as much sugar, then we might move into that area where you would be diagnosed with diabetes if our hemoglobin A1C was 6.5 or above. So 1 in 4 children, 10 to 17 years old with excess weight, have a hemoglobin A1C in the pre-diabetic range, which is really far too many. But it's really easy for this to happen. So kids should get less than 5 teaspoons of sugar per day. But we come across sugar in the most unlikely places and in quantities that are much larger than we would want. So for example, in this bottle of juice or drink, we could find 10 teaspoons of sugar. So you've had 2 days worth of sugar in this one bottle. Or if we have a serving of this potentially healthy, high protein snack, 3 teaspoons of sugar in this. Again, more than we want and more than we probably expect. Or in yogurt, many times we think yogurt is a healthy thing to have. This one it's prebiotics, so it has things that are supposedly going to help our the bacteria in our gut, but greater than 6 teaspoons in this serving of yogurt. Again, much more than we need, and it's partly why we're seeing such an increase in the number of children with prediabetes. Non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. I want to spend a moment thinking about that. So if we think about the cells in our liver, when they are dying and not doing very well, they will see more and more of this chemical ALT that comes out into the blood. So if we have a lot of fat in our liver, we're going to get a lot more of this ALT in our blood. And so we can check the blood of children and adults, and we can see if the ALT is high. And if it is, then we'll worry about liver disease in children. And I would say that in the past, liver disease and fatty liver disease was really associated with alcohol use and excessive alcohol use. And of course, that can cause problems. But now we're seeing a lot more cases where it's related to excess weight. And approximately 40% of adolescents with obesity are already noted to have elevated levels of ALT. And then, of course, there are those lipids. I don't know how many people have had their lipids checked, their triglycerides, their LDL, which is the low density lipoprotein, which is the bad cholesterol, and the HDL, the high density lipoprotein, which I think I like to remember it's the good one because it helps us. The HDL, that one helps us. But 43% of adolescents with obesity have at least one abnormal lipid level. So either their triglycerides or their LDL are high, or their total cholesterol is high, or the good cholesterol, the HDL, is too low, which again, we really don't want to see in children. So something that we have to address. And when we think about addressing weight, we think about the causes. Many times we just think about this balance between calories in and calories out through nutrition and activity. But it seems simple, but it really isn't. There are a host of other factors that come into play. When we think about all these other factors, we like to think about it in different levels, which we call this socio-ecological model. But really, it just says that some factors are at the individual level, like what are your genes like? An interpersonal level, for example, whether your family is an active family, or organizational level. For children, we're talking about schools, but for adults, we can think about the workplace. Are there vending machines that have healthy things in it or not? Community level factors, are there safe places to play? Or society level factors, are we advertising unhealthy foods to children, or can we tax things so that they are less readily available, the unhealthy things, and make the healthy things less expensive? Like, how do we address things at all of those levels? So typically within medicine, we're only addressing things at the individual and interpersonal level. At the other levels, they're really things that we need more advocacy around. And all of us in our communities can do what we can to bring about change. So for example, if we think about the organizational level, we might think about where schools are placed. Unfortunately, more and more often, schools are being placed far away from where the residential areas are and where people are living. So if we think about the 1960s, 50% of students walked to school. The other half were driven some way or in a bus, but 50% walked. By 2016, only 15% of children walked to school. The rest were being taken either in cars or buses. And so the activity that one would get from walking, fewer children are having that benefit now because of where schools are placed. Or again, when we think about where schools are placed, those that are nearer at hand often are in obesogenic environments. So there are studies that have looked at this. And if attending a school where there are fast food restaurants within half a mile is associated with the students who are attending those schools having fewer servings of fruits and vegetables each day, and those children also tend to have more servings of soda, and those kids are more likely to have excess weight. And, these placements of schools and these fast food restaurants around schools, this does not happen randomly. They tend to be placed in predominantly Black neighborhoods and lower income neighborhoods. And so those children attending those schools are more likely to have these negative health impacts, which is really very concerning. And we need advocacy to change that. Or we can think about the community level factors. So access to grocery stores. Many people live in food deserts where they don't have access to healthy fruits and vegetables. Or they live in food swamps where there is a ton of food, but it tends to be unhealthy food, like the fast food restaurants serve, for example, that we were just discussing. Or if we think about safe places to play, we did a study not long ago, in the beginning of the pandemic, looking at 5 to 10-year-olds and the 5 to 11-year-olds and their weight gain during the pandemic. And those who were in areas with no parks gained 20% more weight during the pandemic than children who lived in areas where they had access to 2 or more parks. Again, the community that one lives in has an impact. So trying to make our communities as safe as possible is really vital. And then we have factors at the societal level. So we can think of pollution. Again, factories are not randomly distributed, so communities that have a greater exposure to pollution end up being at greater risk for a number of health conditions. And one of them is actually excess weight. So children whose parents or children whose mothers are exposed to more pollution during pregnancy, those children have a greater likelihood of having excess weight when they're 7 years of age. So even before they're born, they're put at risk of having excess weight because of these societal level factors that, again, we need a lot of advocacy to try to change those things. So what can be done? If a child has excess weight, there are a number of things that can be done to help. And we at the University of Michigan, as I mentioned, have had a number of programs over the years. We had the Pediatric Comprehensive Weight Management Center, and there we offered different programs for different age groups. But we have, for example, our Empower program. That was a six-month family-focused program for adolescents. And we would target the many things that you would imagine we would discuss. So having a healthy breakfast. It's really important to eat breakfast within 90 minutes, at most 2 hours from the time that you wake up. Having fruits and vegetables, so vital to provide the nutrients that we need and really to feed that microbiome, those bacteria between our mouth and all through our guts, all the way down, all the way out, those bacteria that are in our GI tract, we need to feed them with fruits and vegetables with lots of fiber. And when we do, it causes us to have a greater number of the bacteria that help our metabolism to work faster and communicates better with our brain. So it really helps us manage our weight. When we eat other things that are less healthy and ultra-processed foods, then we really support the less healthy bacteria that makes everything harder. So fruits and vegetables, we would discuss those. Sweetened beverages, which really feed the wrong bacteria. Fast food, again, discuss that. And we would address things like screen time, because of course that has many impacts on health, increasing physical activity and sleep, which I'll speak about a little bit later. We would try all of those lifestyle factors. We could also, and the American Academy of Pediatrics recommends using medication when needed. And for many years, all we had was Orlistat, which is a lipase inhibitor. So it sort of stop or slow the absorption of fat. But it caused a lot of different side effects that most children were not willing to sign up for. So flatulence and greasy stool and fecal incontinence and diarrhea. Yeah, not the things that most kids want to experience. And so very few kids actually wanted this medication. And it would be triggered by having, for example, just as much fat as would be in this salad, the crispy chicken salad from McDonald's, or this one of their healthier options, the chicken wrap. Even just the amount of fat in that would trigger those side effects. So not a really popular thing. However, now we have the GLP-1 receptor agonist, which many people are interested in. And as you will know, what these medications do, they replicate a hormone in our body, but make it stay around longer. And this hormone causes our gut to empty slowly, so we feel fuller for longer. Indeed, because of that effect, it can also cause nausea, which means that some people don't like it, don't tolerate the medication that well. But it does keep one fuller for longer. And so then one tends to eat less, and it helps us to lose weight. It also has an effect on the brain. And so it acts at the level of the hypothalamus in the arcuate nucleus. And in that area of the brain, we have some things that help us with weight. So there's this POMC neuron, and I like to think about it because it helps you feel full. And so I think about Ray, we're cheering because this POMC neuron, when it's stimulated, helps you feel full, and so you can stop eating and manage weight pretty well. And these GLP-1 agonists, it stimulates this neuron, and so it helps us feel fuller longer and quicker, and so again helps people to eat less. And then we have the neuropeptide Y and a agouti-related protein, and I remember this one because it increases our appetite, makes us eat more, and decreases our metabolism. So they really help to gain weight. So I think to myself, why do we have to have it? But it of course keeps things in balance. But the important factor here is that these medications, the GLP-1 receptor agonists, they decrease the activity of these neurons, and so they reduce hunger and reduce food cravings. And so in this way, these medications can help if used in the right patients at the right time. I will say that once you stop using the medications, the effect often goes away. And so it's really important while one is on them to learn as many healthy habits as possible and get them entrenched in one's life so that when the medications, if and when one stops the medication, one can still have the benefit of those healthy lifestyle habits that can help maintain weight and help to improve health. And so to increase the ability of kids to maintain those healthy habits and to adopt those healthy habits, we often think about what we could do. So we know that when they're with us, they can hear all these things that we want them to do, and they say to us, they're very encouraged and motivated to stay on track with healthy changes. But then when they leave us, there's like this temptation to eat things that are not the greatest because our society is just they surrounds them with this. And so I know they're hearing that temptation and that voice that's just telling them to eat these things. And I wanted them to be able to hear our voices from the clinic telling them to have something healthy. And so we had this bright idea many, many years ago. I think our first text messaging intervention was back in 2011 or something like that, where we started sending kids text messages about healthy lifestyle habits to see if that could help them make these healthy changes. And we found that it did make a difference. And so we've since then developed a number of apps whereby we can help kids to make healthy choices if they happen to live in an obesogenic environment and they need to buy things from fast food venues. Then how can we encourage them to make healthier choices when they're there rather than the things that they would normally eat? And so I want to end today by talking about 8 things that we can all do, not just kids, but all of us, adolescents, young children, adults, and not just people with excess weight, because while excess weight is a good measure of, or gives us a good indication of our risk for having health concerns, certain health concerns like high cholesterol, high sugar, and so on, anybody can have those factors. And I will say that I've managed to maintain my BMI within the healthy range, and I struggle with my cholesterol and I struggle with my blood sugar. So these 8 things are things that I think will help all of us have better health and avoid some of the complications that are typically associated with chronic illness. The first one, of course, is nutrition. To try to be sure that when we eat, half our plate is full of fruits and vegetables, and then a quarter is healthy carbohydrates, so brown rice, brown pasta, healthy carbohydrates, and another quarter are lean proteins, so beans and tofu and those sorts of things. That will help us have healthy nutrition. And then, of course, we must all engage in activity. We must be exercise. We must keep moving. And actually, the studies suggest that any amount of exercise is better than none. And it all adds up. So you don't have to do your 30 minutes a day or your to get to that 150 minutes a week. You don't have to do that at one time. You can do a few minutes in the morning and a few minutes in the afternoon and then some in the evening. And it all adds up. And then the more that we can move, I should be doing this presentation standing because it really makes a difference. After we eat is the best time to go for a walk. Or if you can't go for a walk, just don't sit down. After you eat, just some activity right after you eat helps to prevent those fat cells from stretching around our middle. That's the real danger, when the fat cells are all around our middle and those ones are getting stretched. We want to avoid that. So after we eat, we should definitely at least move. If we can do nothing else, we should stand. And then water. I have my little bottle here to remind me of the fact that I need to drink water. I don't know if you're like me. I don't really, should I say this on camera? I'm not the biggest fan of water, but it is the best thing that we can do for our health. So remember to drink water. Sunlight is the next thing. Now, of course, we have to be safe and we don't want to be out in the midday sun without any sunscreen. But we do want to get out into sunlight because it will help us with vitamin D, which actually helps in a number of different health conditions. And people with excess weight tend to have lower levels of vitamin D, which it really has an impact on our immunity, which is part of the problem when we are exposed to different viruses. And it helps us sleep better if we get sunlight at the right time of day. So make sure we get exposure to sunlight. And then, of course, we want to have temperance in everything. We want to avoid things like alcohol and anything that's going to be dangerous for our health. And we want to live a balanced life. And then fresh air. So few of us get out into the fresh air, but that makes a huge difference for our health. And we want our kids to be outside. Playing outside and being outside has a positive impact on health, on any number of things. In fact, even their vision is better by being outside, because when you are outside, you look at things at a greater distance, and that is better for one's vision. So be sure to, especially now in the summer, have kids get outside as much as possible. Now, I'm going to spend a little time, just a couple minutes, on rest, because I think in our society, we do not pay enough attention to rest. It is so vital. And when we rest, it affects both our health when we're children and when we're adults. So when we're children grow most during sleep. So most of my teens in clinic are very surprised to hear that they should get 9.5 hours of sleep. And they really should. And of course, if they're younger, they need even more sleep than that. And sleep helps with memory. So it helps them do better in school. And for adults, if we want to have better memories as well, we need to sleep more. One of the interesting things about sleep is that it lowers the risk of stroke and heart disease. So a study was done looking at those who get less than 5 hours, or then those who get 7 hours. And if you get 7 hours of sleep, it cuts the risk of having a heart attack in half compared to those who are getting 5 hours or less of sleep. So must get our sleep. I mentioned immunity before. Getting enough sleep helps us fight infection. So another study looking at getting 5 hours sleep versus 6 hours of sleep. If you got 6 hours of sleep, it cut the risk of catching a virus in half compared to those who had 5 hours of sleep. So again, we need to get enough sleep. And as you might imagine, considering today we're talking about weight, those who sleep enough find it easier to manage weight. If we don't sleep enough, then our hormones are all up the spout, and it makes it much, much harder to make healthy choices during the day and to maintain a healthy weight. And then mood and stress. Sleep helps to improve mood and manage stress. And many young people these days are suffering from mood disorders and feel that they're experiencing a lot of stress. And so sleep will help in those circumstances, both for the young people and for adults. And then I just want to say a bonus point here, number 7, for those of us who are getting more advanced in age, I will say that this is important because during sleep, toxins that we believe cause dementia are cleaned from the brain during deep sleep. So we want to get enough sleep. It has to be deep sleep so that that cleaning process can go on. And I will add another bonus that cleaning process happens better if our blood sugar is lower at that time. So you don't want to eat just before you go to bed. Otherwise, your blood sugar is not low enough, and then that cleaning process doesn't happen as well, making one at greater risk for dementia. But if you sleep and follow that plan, then you will lower the risk of dementia. And finally, the last thing I want to say is to trust in God. Clearly, we can do all the things that I have listed, but the most important thing is to trust God and to work with Him. He created us. He knows what our body needs. In fact, for example, He wanted us all to have at least one day of rest a week, knowing that we all needed that rest. He tells us, "Beloved, I wish above all things that thou mayest prosper and be in health, even as thy soul prospereth." I pray that this is the life that you will experience. And thank you again for the opportunity of being here today. God bless you all.
Wow. Thank you, Dr. Susan Wolford White, for that wealth of information. We truly appreciate it. And now, before we close, I just want to remind everyone that the 75th Jubilee Convention is coming up October 7th through 11th, and it's in beautiful Spartanburg, South Carolina at the Marriott. Go to www.iwccooljc.com to enroll in IWC 2026, as well as to register for the 75th Jubilee Convention. We're expecting a great outpouring of the Holy Spirit, sweet sisterhood, encouragement, and all the wonderful, wonderful times that we have. Such fun, such fellowship, such a movement of the Holy Spirit that we have at these conventions. So please join us. We would love to see you there. For any other event information, you can also go to the International Women's Council Cool JC Facebook page as well. God bless you and have a wonderful, wonderful day. Bye-bye.